know Terry super well, but I have been exposed to him quite a bit once a week. And I think the thing that comes to mind is I don't think I'm very exciting, but every time Terry would see me, he seemed very excited to see me. So that always makes me feel good. And you experience it in a unique way with him. That's all I know to say. And he also seemed to have an amazing sense of humor, and I value that. And I asked him lots of questions about his history and his parents and a lot of the fun that entailed. And he seemed to just take all the good things and leave what wasn't good about it behind. And I cherish him, and I'm honored to be here. And that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
A few words. My name's Bobby. I knew Terry for the, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I guess. I knew Terry by reputation prior to actually meeting him in person. A lot of you probably know he had a personality, and there were plenty of fun stories about Terry to go around. As the years went by that I knew him, I was able to develop a close relationship with him, and I really I appreciated the tremendous experience that he had in life. He had such an interesting life, and such a wildly varied life. You know, from working in the Defense Department to his activism, all the way through to being a therapist. He seemed to be sort of an inveterate learner. He was always, you know, he had a number of degrees and certifications, and the interesting thing about Terry was that as irreverent as he was as a person, one of his favorite topics, something that always came up, was religion and comparison of various religions and his understanding of various religions. And towards the very end, over the last year or so, you know, we amongst our circle of friends, we always kind of joked about it. And unfortunately, it was always able to remain a joke, was that Terry would not stop driving. You know, you could say he was literally blind in one eye and was still driving around. And eventually we sort of started taking measures to say, all right, you know what, Terry, I was thinking I'd come by and pick you up on the way, and or you know, hey, Frank's gonna come grab you and bring you up to my place. And so I had a lot of time to drive around with Terry in the car, which is always a fun place to sort of sit with people and talk to people. And but among the things I think I remember him saying was that he imagined this afterlife. Like I always thought it was odd that he was so attached to an afterlife, because he just did seem so irreverent in life. But then it all kind of comes together and makes sense. And in his picture of the afterlife was, you know, him sort of like, and choirs of angels, because he loved singing, and it was this very heavenly atmosphere that what I've been thinking about since he died is just that I hope he gets to experience that, and that's kind of how I'll think of him. You know, we all do our own things with people when they die. Another friend in the rooms who shortly before he died said he imagined like rocketing to outer space and just being on a planet waiting for the rest of us to show up, you know, and that was like his thing, and that's how I picture him. And with Terry, you know, I picture him in this scene of the afterlife that was the one he wanted, you know, and it was always an interesting topic of conversation for us, because my view of the afterlife couldn't be more different than that, and we had so much time to sort of talk back and forth about that, but I appreciate that he shared that with me, and I really appreciate that I had the time with him that I had, because he was such a character, and just really never a dull moment. It seemed like there was never a dull moment. Even the dull moments weren't dull. So I appreciated his friendship, and glad we could all come out here today. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's going to be plenty of people to say something. Yeah.
So I knew Terry for quite a while, from early sobriety. There were meetings every day at noon and in the evening at the Metropolitan Community Church, which is now a brewery. And that was one of the many places, many meetings I would see Terry at. And if he ever had a bad day, he didn't show it. I mean, he had a twinkle in his eye and a smile right up to the very end. I visited him toward the tail end, and he was kind of, coming in and out, but he had that smile still, that kind of devilish thing. And so as I was trying to, pull myself together to come today, I'm mostly working from home now, and I was in shorts and a t-shirt, and I almost just ran out that way, and I thought, no, I should wear something splashy for Terry. He would appreciate it.
Yep.
So I was getting dressed, and I was pulling these trousers on. I was saying, Terry, I do not put pants on for many people anymore. So I certainly take them off for quite a few people, which I know you appreciate. I know he would appreciate that level of candor.
Yes.
Because he had a great sense of humor. He brought a lot of light into the meetings and into most of our lives. So I just wanted to say goodbye to him, tell him I love the wicker casket. It's very summary. He would have appreciated it anyway. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And it is very splashy.
I'll just say a few words. My name is Patrick, and I had the good fortune and pleasure of being sponsored by Terry for a few years, and he was just a joy and a treat, and I felt so honored and lucky to be able to know him and learn from him and converse with him about all the different topics people have touched on already, whether it's religion or sex or just being a rascal. When I think of Terry, he's a rascal, and that devilish grin you were talking about, and just what a life he lived, growing up the way he did, going through all the decades, and I just think of all the friends and loved ones he had seen pass, and he dealt with, there was so much loss and so much pain there, and yet he didn't let it get in the way of developing these strong relationships and making each person he came in contact with feel loved and special and engaged with. And he was just a beautiful man, and I love him, and I'm gonna miss him. Thanks.
I want to say a couple words. I've never seen a wicker casket, and I love it. I totally love it. It's beautiful. It sounded cool carrying it up here. Just want to make note of that to the other pallbearers. We can remember that sound. It's kind of a neat sound. So I think that the thing that I want to just touch on is I want to remind myself maybe and just say out loud that he was totally free. And I think that there's a lot of stuff around death and dying and after and before and finality and all that means there's some place we're going, there's some place to get. And I think there's also this wonderful experience of moment by moment, either being free or not. And most everybody here that I know knows what it's like to not be free. And motherfucker was free. Like that last couple of visits at the hospital, like he's joyful and telling a story because he wants to tell a story. Like not because he has to, not because he's patterned to think it's important. Just that's It's just what he wants to fucking do. I want to tell you a story. Great, man. Tell me a story. This is the best thing in the world right now. Just listen to Terry tell you a story about dilderias in the 70s or something. You know, like a word I would have never known prior to meeting Terry. So he told me some stories, or parts of them, and then sort of dozed off and then started a new one. And it was all just good stuff, though. But he was free, and I think that if there's anything that I celebrate, it's that. And then lastly, I'd just say that when I was sitting there with him at the hospital, he dozed. He was telling me a story, and he dozed. And when he came back, he reached out and grabbed my hand. And then he looked at me, and then he started coming back. And he was kind of doing this, like, drifting, hanging out a little bit. Maybe I'll hang out a little bit longer. Like, maybe I'm drifting. Maybe I'll hang out a little bit longer. And that sort of, I don't know, dance with the other side or whatever. I said, is it helpful to hold my hand? Like, is that like, and he's like, he's one of these. I'm like he's like
Making a move.
you know, one of the proper dressed LA guys from the 40s. You know, he's like, I was like, cool, hang out for a while, man. And so we did. And then he didn't, but he was free. Love you, Terry.
Thank you.